Yo, 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 what is going on, my beautiful brothers and sisters, fellow radiators of love? My name is Jamal Pope, aka J Phoenix, and this is going to be your Cosmic Convergence. This is the weekly astrology forecast where I look at the weekly astrological transits and cover them, go deep into them, and so this is going to be a really interesting one for sure. We have a lot of interesting things happening. This is going to be for Wednesday, the 26th, through Tuesday, July 2nd. And this is going to, like I said, this is going to be a pretty interesting weekly astrology horoscope. We have a couple interesting things going on. Like I said, the moon's been doing a lot. We are in Cancer season, so happy birthday to all the Cancers out there. And we have a couple of planets that are going to be making station retrogrades over the next 7 days. So energy is going to kind of slow down a little bit as far as that goes. It's going to be pretty interesting to see. So we're going to hop into it. We're going to talk more in depth each day today, and then we'll draw some cards at the end, of course. So first things first, of course. What did I call it today? Well, I called it a Looming Final Showdown. I have an image here where you have this party of individuals, warriors and mages alike. And they are opening this door with this mysterious purple miasma that's flowing out of it. And they're getting ready for this final showdown. And the reason why I called it a looming final showdown is because we do have planets that are retrograding. We have Saturn that's going to be retrograding on Saturday. We do have another planet that will be retrograding. It'll be, hold on, let me look at it. There's going to be Neptune that's going to station retrograde as well. I think it's going to be more station, but it's going to station retrograde as well next week. So we have both planets that are in Pisces right now, the last sign of the zodiac. One of them, which is at the last degree of the zodiac, that are about to retrograde. And Pisces does rule, the magic. It is the miasma that is spewing and billowing out of this door, if you will. It is a bit of a fog. And that's why things have probably been feeling a bit weird lately with all the Piscean energy, with all the energy that we had in Gemini that squared Saturn, that squared Neptune. And now all those energies have moved into Cancer. And we're about to start seeing the trines. We've already had one planet in retrograde in Pluto, right? It's the only planet that's been in retrograde. We're going to start to feel the retrograde a bit more now. Because Pluto's that outermost planet, so its energy isn't felt as it's still very much so prevalent, especially more on a large global scale. But with Saturn, that's going to be going retrograde, we're going to feel that one a bit more. We call them the transpersonal planets because it does move a little bit slower. It takes about 29 years for it to go around the zodiac. And then, of course, we have Neptune, the second slowest planet. That's also going to be retrograding as well, and they're both in Pisces. This week is definitely the signaling of this final showdown. Now, what's the big boss battle? Well, I think in everyone's personal life it may present itself as something different, but I think collectively the final showdown is the dying, decrepit, clinging on to its last moments and last breaths sort of amalgamation of the society that we have created that is definitely on its last leg, and we are having to confront this amalgamation finally before we move into the new age of Aquarius. And we are pretty much in the new age of Aquarius, but before we really move into the new era, we have to confront the past. So the final showdown is actually with the past. The monsters of the past that we have tried to sweep under the rug, that we have tried to shove into the closet, they are going to be coming out for one last dance, one last hurrah. This is their Hail Mary, if you will. And this is the week that's going to signal it because, like I said, we have Saturn that's going to be retrograde and Neptune's going to be retrograde. And by the time that these planets come out of the retrograde, Pluto would have gone back into Capricorn and will have come back into Aquarius. So, and then we won't see Pluto in Aquarius for the rest of our lives, unless you happen to live 250 years. Which might very well be possible, but it's depending upon like new technologies and advancements and all that shit. But you're probably not going to see this again. So, these are the things that we need to face. But there are so many people not around, just through my observations and talking to people, so many people, and probably all of us to a degree in some area of our life, have been sticking our head in the sand and avoiding the inevitable, the inevitability that the society that we have created is transforming. It has collapsed. It is transforming forever, and we have to adjust and adapt to a new way, a new energy, a new vibe. Sticking our head in the sand with certain facets of our own life. Maybe we've been ignoring things. That's the thing about all this Piscean energy, but now that it's retrograded, it's going to be harder to ignore them, believe it or not. We would think it'd be harder to ignore them, but it's not going to be harder to ignore them. They're actually going to be more prevalent, more in our face. The covers are going to be pulled back, if you will. Remember when I said Neptune rules sleep, but when Neptune is going reverse, Neptune's awake. So, by the end of this week, the collective subconscious is going to wake up. And with Saturn retrograde too, it's probably a good thing that Saturn retrogrades beforehand, because at least we can come up with some kind of game plan on how we're going to confront this final boss, if you will. So, now let's go ahead and hop into the charts, of course. Let me actually get the charts up. Let me see. And I'm change the wheel style because I like to show it with the Decan ruler. And we're going to go ahead and move this on to Wednesday. So we're on Tuesday right now, so let's go ahead and move this in to Wednesday. All right. Cool. So here we are. Let's go ahead and start off. So Wednesday the 26th. Now, on this day, we're going to be taking a look. So we have the moon. It's going to shift into Pisces. So this week starts off, this forecast starts off with the moon entering into Pisces, right? Now, this moon on this day is going to make some aspects. It's going to trine the sun. It's going to square Jupiter. It's also going to trine Venus. But we also have to look at some of these other planets, what they're going to be doing as well. So I'll go ahead and just start to move this forward, and you pay attention to Mercury there at 18 degrees, because it's going to hit 19 degrees at some point too. So that moon's going to move into Pisces, and then bam, we're going to see this Mercury here at 19 degrees make its trine over to Saturn in Pisces at 19 degrees. Now this Saturn is very, very slow. So that's the interesting thing about this. This Mercury is definitely going to be speaking from a place of emotion. That is for sure. This Saturn in Pisces is trying to... It's an interesting aspect because it does make Saturn a little bit more empathetic, but at the same time, it's like we have to know the right time and place and when to communicate these emotions. Especially if you think about Saturn does rule work and career. You know, this could be a good time to bring up maybe some of your feelings and your thoughts about different things, but we have to do so in a way that's more constructive. The good thing that this is a trine is that this can be more constructive, and you actually could perhaps see some actual, consideration from bosses or headway or stuff like that. But there's also an element here where it's like, well, we don't necessarily want to get too emotionally wrapped up into things as well. We got to learn how to almost sort of separate the two and take the emotion out of it. But it might be a little bit hard to, because, like I said, we do have all this focus on Cancer, right? At the same time that this Mercury is going to be in trine to Saturn, We're going to see Venus here at 11 degrees, making a square to the nodes as well. Venus, of course, it's all about how we give and receive, especially on the reception end, especially in Cancer on the reception end. How do we give and receive? And this squaring of this nodal axis that is Aries and Libra, it's activating a cardinal T-square, if you will. So we're trying to figure out what direction are we really going in. And this is honestly about receiving the direction that the universe wants us to go in. Now the question is are we going to go towards the 10th house of Venus aspect to the North Node, where the North Node is, like I said, in Aries. It's in the 10th house to this Venus, and it's in the 10th house to the Sun too. So are we going to go more in the direction of that, where we show our valiance, we show our courage and our bravery to really be who we are? And that's really what it comes down to, is like, who are you? Do you know who you are? Can you receive who you really are and your rawness, right? Or are we going to go more towards the South Node aspect, which is in the 4th house to this Venus and to the Sun? And the 4th house, of course, is Cancer naturally. So it's probably going to be more comfortable to go towards the South Node. And the South Node is where we may try and make concessions. We may try and find some sort of balance and harmony. And Venus, of course, is dispositing the South Node as well. So that's another thing that we have to consider too, is that it's probably going to be a little bit easier and kind of get naturally pulled more into the South Node with this square than it will be going towards the North Node with this square. Because you may find yourself, like I said, making some concessions, maybe giving too much. That's the thing here. It's like you don't want to give too much here as well, because that's what Libra could potentially do. It can be over giving to the point where it loses its identity, right? So we want to be careful about losing our identity on Wednesday by giving too much, because we are seeking some kind of comfort with that 4th house South Node aspect, right? Whereas going towards the North Node, it's not really easy to go there. Chiron is there, so there's definitely some type of lesson to be learned there. Probably a lesson that comes from some type of wounding or scarring or trauma, if you will. You know, it's like, I expressed myself this way before and it wasn't well received. Maybe I should just go in this route instead. Maybe I should just go towards the South Node instead. Now we got to remember, at the same time that this square is happening, the moon will be enshrined to the sun. So that's a very positive aspect. It's a very nice alignment there. It's very harmonious with this trine. So I think the good thing about this is that we can find comfort. I think right here, we can really find comfort in doing the things that we know aren't going to be easy. Now, that's where you find the comfort, is doing the things that you know aren't going to be easy. And, you know, this moon in Pisces, like I said, it's in the 9th house to this sun and to this Venus and to this Mercury. And, you know, so this moon is like emotionally, like, you know, what do we believe in? You know, what do we see? Can we see the bigger picture? You know, and that's the thing about this. The comfort that we may be looking to have, the security that we may be looking to have, it may be more temporary, to kind of help with some temporary emotion. But this moon is wanting us to look at the larger picture and be like, well, in the longer run of things, the grand scheme of things, you know, we have to take those things into consideration more here with this trine. This moon, of course, also today, we will see it soon after the trine to the sun. We will see it make a square over to Jupiter, right? Now, of course, this is going to bring up some challenges. This Jupiter is a big fish in a very small pond. And Jupiter much rather be in Pisces, where it can look at the big picture, but it's actually having to look at the facts, the more the day-to-day, not just the grand picture of things. It has to deal with the day-to-day tasks, right? So emotionally, we may be wanting to kind of, like I said, look at this larger picture of things, especially after a trine to the sun, so we can feel more invigorated, and more creative and more passionate about, how can we channel our emotions creatively, if you will. But then this square to Jupiter is going to be like, look, okay, that's cool and all, but what are the facts of the reality? You know, and then we get that hard check, like I said, with Jupiter. What are the facts here? It's great that you have this nice grand picture, these cool ideas, these cool ideals, but what are the facts here, right? And it's not like Jupiter's very comfortable with it either. This is Jupiter in Gemini is sort of like it is the fun manager, and he can't be as fun as he wants to be. Even though Gemini is a very fun energy and Gemini can be a bit of a comedian, Jupiter in Gemini, because it's uncomfortable, Jupiter you know, has to learn all of these different intricacies that Mercury normally deals with. And it makes it a bit uncomfortable. This is like taking the big boss, like say if you have like a company, right? So you have like a company of like 500 plus location stores, units, whatever like that, and you have someone that's like way high up in the company, and then they come down and they work at the grunt level, right? And now they're having to deal with the people. Now they're having to deal with, the store associates, if you will. That is what Jupiter is having to deal with right now. Jupiter's not used to dealing with that. Jupiter's used to dealing with the people that make the decisions and the big things, the big picture and the grand ideals. Now Jupiter's having to deal with the customers, right? Jupiter's in a call center right now answering calls. Mercury's good at that shit because Mercury is fast. Mercury doesn't get caught up in the emotion of it or anything like that. Mercury doesn't try and like over explain things. Mercury's like, okay, you do this, all right, cool. Now we got this, all right, cool. Like that's how Mercury's able to do it. Jupiter in the call center, Jupiter is normally so big minded and so big pictured that he's going to not be able to get through calls as fast as Mercury can get through the calls. So Jupiter's having to learn how to adjust with that. So, like I said, with this moon having trined the sun before, and then it's going to trine Jupiter, Jupiter is starting to kind of get the hang of it. It's about 7 degrees through Gemini. So it's in here now. Like, it's not like it's in here, right? So what are the facts here? What's the reality of it? And can we potentially make things a little bit more efficient? Mercury likes to make things more efficient too. That's the thing about it. It rules Gemini and it rules Virgo, especially Virgo. Virgo's all about efficiency. So we have that's going to be happening with that moon. And then towards the end of the day, we will see that moon make a nice little trine over to Venus at 12 degrees. As Venus is coming off of the square to the nodes, we will see the moon trine over to Venus. And this is a nice positive aspect too, because we actually have some mutual reception here. The moon, it does rule Cancer, and Venus exalts itself in Venus. So they are kind of happy to talk to each other. And I think we kind of get to the end of Wednesday where it's like, it can most certainly be an inspiring day. There can also be some moments where we have to be kind of met with the reality a little bit. The reality of the fact is that this moon is about to conjunct Saturn, and the Saturn is slow, right? This Venus, it was leading the pack at one point, but Mercury zipped past it. And now Venus is getting ready to, make that trine to Saturn itself and eventually square over to Chiron, coming off these squares to the nodes, and really is trying to figure out how to receive these codes, these downloads, if you will, especially this squaring aspect, because the North Node and South Node, that there's a lot of coding that comes through those energies, So this Venus is trying to learn how to receive all that with the squaring energy. And the challenge is, it's like it's getting its new missions, right? Whenever you have an energy that squares the nodes, it's like you're getting a new mission, right? Like if you're like in a game or RPG, it's like, all right, your mission is to collect 5 horns from these turtle dragons or something like that. I don't know. I'm just trying to come up with something, right? You have to collect these different things. That's like you get the mission or get the challenge or whatever like that, and then you have to kind of go off on the quest, if you will. So Venus has received the downloads from the North Node and the South Node. So then this moon is going to trine over to Venus, and we're going to sort of emotionally upload this, if you will. But it's going to be more of a collective thing because this moon is in Pisces. So we're going to like get this square with we're going to get the square of Venus to the nodes. The moon will trine Venus after the square, and we get this sort of emotional download, if you will. So by the time that the moon comes over Saturn and over Neptune and then goes into Aries, we can start to actually put things into action. Right? Now, going into Thursday, we will see that moon, and this was like early in the day too. It's like 12:53 a.m. We see that the moon is going to sextile Mars, right? But like I said, that one is going to be a very quick aspect. We're not going to really see much happen with that. But we will see this moon come on top of Saturn at 19 degrees, right? Now, I think it's interesting that this is in opposition to Black Moon Lilith. Not exact, but it is in opposition to Black Moon Lilith. So this is going to be a pretty big download moment because the next time that the moon comes around in conjunct Saturn, it's going to be retrograde, right? So this is sort of like that last moment where, at least emotionally, we are sort of downloading this sort of direction, if you will, these sort of rules, if you will, from Saturn. It's going to be the last opportunity before we go into this final showdown, if you will. So it's like when you go and like look through the rule book and it's like, okay, this is what you gotta do, this is the mission, blah blah blah. This is like one of those preparation moments when this moon hits this Saturn, right? Now this moon, of course, also is going to trine Mercury at 21 degrees, and it does create a grand water trine with Pallas Athena as well. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of trines at the beginning of the week, which is nice. It's beautiful, because whenever I see a trine, I think of healing energy. That we actually are getting some healing kind of energy. So I really do like that. Now, we're also going to see this moon hit the 25th degree, which means it's going to be in sextile to Uranus. And oh boy, look at that. At the same time that it's going to be in sextile to Uranus, Venus will be at 13 degrees, making a sextile over to Mars. So now, these two energies do enjoy being a sextile to each other because they work well while being a sextile to each other. The only weird thing with this sextile is that Mars is not really in the greatest place. It's a little bit slow in Taurus. It's going to take Mars a little bit longer to get off. Not going to lie. And Venus is going to want to receive Mars at its best. But when these two energies come together and they're sextile, it really just honestly kind of depends on where Mars is. But like Mars in Taurus, it may take a little bit longer for Mars to get off. Not even going to lie here, right? But Mars is that energy about it's how we dish out energy. It's kind of the giving energy. Venus is give and take too, but Venus is more reception. Mars is more about action and putting out, if you will. So there's this energy here where it's like Mars wants to definitely put out more and stuff, but that's the weird thing about it. Mars's boss, which is Saturn, is slowing down, right? Mars is going to retrograde later this year, but his boss is about to slow down, which means that now Mars has to kind of start to move in a way. It's like, well, it has to be a little bit more autonomous. It has to be a little bit more, it has to think for himself a little bit more and not just keep asking Saturn for questions and answers and stuff too. So that's the other thing about this. So I've been getting, if you've been watching my daily content, you'll notice how Mars has been coming up a lot frequently. It's been coming up because this is a time where it's like, how do we get through this? Mars and Taurus. Ironically, Mars and Taurus is the way that we get through it. It might not be the strongest Mars, but it is the Mars that does teach resilience. It is the Mars that does teach being able to overcome these challenges by digging deep. And it comes down to, okay, it's pretty simple. When it was in Aries, it's about who you are. When it's in Taurus, it's about what you value and your worth. So you have to ask yourself, Is this worth it? If it's worth it, do it. If it's not worth it, then reevaluate. But if it's worth it, do it. Is it going to be hard? Yes. But is it worth it? Yes. Then do it. That's the thing about Mars and Taurus. It's actually very simple. And it's that and that's the thing about Mars and Taurus. It's the moment where you are not motivated to do something, but you know it's worth it, that you double down and you do it anyways. So that's the thing about this sextile. It's a positive aspect, but we can actually get on the same page emotionally with this Venus in Cancer and receive like, you know what? I know that I will feel better by doing this hard thing in the future. I know I will feel better by doing this hard thing in the future. It may not necessarily feel the best right now. It may be a little bit difficult right now to make these adjustments, but I know that I will feel better by doing this hard thing, so I'm going to do it. That's the beautiful thing about the sextile. And then that moon in Pisces, which is already emotionally thinking more about the big picture, is in sextile to Uranus, also in Taurus. And Uranus is very much so about the future and this the quantum reality of things, and being able to jump into different time eras and skip time and shit like that. Uranus is a freaking time machine, right? So that's the cool thing about this, is that while that sextile is happening, the other sextile is happening, to where it's like, you know what? Yeah, emotionally, I know that in the future, that putting in the work and doing the thing that's hard, and I know it's going to be worth it, will yield something beautiful that can grow and be built from this. And I will look back and be like, I'm glad that I did that thing. I'm glad that I stuck it out. I'm glad that I worked hard. I'm glad that I didn't give up. And that's really what this whole moment is about here on Thursday, is the realization that you do not have to give up. Just because things may feel a little bit uncomfortable and things may feel a little bit weird, that you don't give up. Especially if, like I said, you ask yourself, is it worth it? If it's not worth it, then reevaluate. If it is worth it, cool. Keep going. Oh, it's not perfect? Yeah, well, that's just kind of the way it is right now, right? That's just life. And there's a level of acceptance here. But I think at this point, the universe has taken us through so many important transit after important transit. We've gone through so much now that really it should be crystal clear on what is worth it and what is not worth it at this point. It should be clear. We can come up with all these different things in our head, whatever like that, and maybe get confused, and that's probably partly to Jupiter and Gemini. But we should be able to, at this point, with at least close to 99% certainty, if not 100, know what is worth it, what is not worth it, right? And if something is worth it, if we deemed it as worth it, then keep moving. Now, I think the weird thing about it is that we still have all this Piscean energy, so yes, there could still be some illusion around things and some delusion around things. But the good thing is that with Saturn going retrograde and Neptune going retrograde, this filter is about to come down a little bit. And we're going to be able to see reality. And so the reality is about to get unmasked in a crazy way. The collective human subconscious, or the collective unconscious, subconscious, is about to come down. This filter is about to come down, and we're going to be able to see. It's going to be harder to stick your head in the sand after this week. So that's the thing about this. If you don't know if it's worth it or not, you probably will know within a week or two. But the universe is giving us an opportunity to know right now. I left my water over there. I'm going to go grab it. Now that's Thursday. Now, we moved into Friday. Now the sun's coming up on Friday, at least here on the East Coast. We will say that the moon has already conjuncted Neptune. It's going to be in the middle of the night, so for those of you, at least here in America, dreams might be a little trippy. Dreams might be a little bit trippy with that moon on Neptune, right? But by the time that the sun comes up, that moon is going to be in Aries. And now emotionally, we're going to be much more fired up and passionate and feeling more bold and wanting to tackle the day. But it's Friday going into the weekend. So I think it's kind of interesting how that happens with this particular week. How it kind of starts off with the moon in Aquarius, and then by the weekend it's going to be in Aries. So people are probably going to be wanting to party more, I'm sure, with that moon going into Aries. Now, of course, as soon as it comes into Aries, we're going to see the sextile to Pluto. That's the first thing that we're going to feel. That's going to be the energy that kind of marks the day, is the moon sextiling over to Pluto. Now, this moon, of course, being here in Aries, feeling much more bold and much more fired up and passionate, but this Pluto is here in Aquarius, retrograde, getting ready to go back into Capricorn. This can be a weird thing where it's like, well, emotionally, are we going to deny the fact that Pluto is going back into Capricorn and that we have something to face? You know, the Looming final showdown. This, like, the way I have it in here is like that image is like, yeah, they're getting ready to face the final boss, but you personally, this could be you finally having to face the fact that you had to clean out your closet. And then your closet's a little dirty. You got some things you got to clean out. We all have skeletons in our closet, that's what they say, but yeah, maybe it's time for you to go through your clothes and see what fits, what doesn't fit. What shoes have holes? What shoes have the soles that have been totally worn out? And it's time to, replace those because it's taking up space and it's taking up energy. It's taking up space for, where new things can move into, right? So this moon here in Aries is like, yeah, it can be very fired up and passionate and stuff. But, in the sextiles, it's an opportunity to recognize what can be cleared out, what can be transformed, and how we really can move forward. It's still in Aquarius, mind you, but it's definitely looking back at Capricorn, right? So it's like we want to move forward in many ways, but we still have to go back into this freaking world here. Still have to go back into that world. Now, we're also going to see the square to the sun today. So we're going to actually get the third quarter square here at 7 degrees, right? This is going to be happening that at the same time that Mercury is going to be squaring Chiron. So we get a double whammy of a square on this Friday. And by the end of the workday on Friday, at least for those on the East Coast, or just like in the middle of your day on the West Coast, right, we are going to see a double square. Now the moon, of course, like I said, it's feeling much more bold, but the sun is over here, of course, in Cancer. We have a bit of mutual reception here because the moon rather be in Cancer and the sun would rather be in Aries where it's exalted, right? But they're in opposite places, right? The masculine and the feminine, because the sun is masculine, the moon is feminine, right? So it's like kind of seeing things from each other's usual vantage point. And then, of course, you have Mercury here squaring Chiron. And oh boy, is that going to be rough. That's going to be rough. That's going to be a tough one. Why? Because if you overly identify with the wounding and the weirdness of Chiron, and you communicate from that place instead of a place of, learning from your past and how you've grown stronger from your past and your past mistakes and stuff, or whatever have you, whatever weird aspect of you that Chiron is, whatever weirdness of it is, or you start, really getting deeper into the victim mentality and really start championing the trauma instead of actually championing how you became stronger from that situation or how you bloomed through the cracks of whatever situation it is that you feel like might have held you down before, but you were able to bloom through the cracks. You should focus more on how you bloomed through this thing instead of the trauma, the hurt, the victimhood. But oh boy, this is a square, and oh boy, this Mercury is in Cancer, and oh boy, the moon is in Aries. So people are going to pop off on Friday. People who have unresolved and who have not healed, people are going, or have unresolved issues and have not healed, people are going to pop off with this third quarter square of this moon and this north node and this Chiron, making squares to the sun and Mercury. And of course, Venus coming off of that square to the north. Friday is going to be an interesting day. For sure. For sure. I would not be surprised if we see somebody somewhere that just kind of snaps on this day. You know? Wouldn't be surprised if we see someone that snaps. Someone prominent. So it's like either someone goes viral because of this, or, you know, someone prominent, you know, maybe an Aries, maybe a Cancer, right? Or maybe someone who has dominant energies in Aries or Cancer around these particular degrees. But someone somewhere is probably going to pop off and be like, you know, start to use their Chiron and their woundings as a fucking sword, and instead of using it to teach how they overcame the challenges, they're going to use it as like, look at me, woe is me, you should love me, and do all these sort of things. And you will be able to see, okay, this person clearly isn't healed, or they're not healing, they're not deciding to heal. Instead, they're just waving around their wounds and saying that everyone should just love them regardless, even if they decide to not heal and they just decide to just let it fester. You know, it sounds weird, gross, and whatever, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you guys either, because I'm not that kind of person. I don't want to sugarcoat things, guys. I want you guys to be prepared that if you happen to see someone that snaps on Friday, this is the reason why. It's because of these squares. All right? That's why. Now, the cool thing is that this moon, while it is in square to the sun, it is going to also be in, you know, sextile to Jupiter. So that's kind of the cool thing about it. But we got to remember that this Jupiter is not really in a happy place. So there's an opportunity to definitely grow here. But like I said, Jupiter is in an uncomfortable, tight place in Gemini. So that's the weird thing about it. This can be a moment where we can really grow and evolve. It's sort of like the moment right before, in my head, it was like, I saw like a balloon popping, but like, it's like kind of the moment right before the butterfly, like, you know, comes out of, you know, the cocoon or the chrysalis, right? And it's breaking through, and it could be uncomfortable, or because this moon is in such proximity to the north node and opposing the south node, and that's like the dragon, that's like a snake, if you will, or Ouroboros. This is like the snake shedding its skin, and how it can be pretty uncomfortable when it sheds its skin. But when it finally does shed it, it feels new and refreshed. The sextile to Jupiter, and Jupiter is all about expansion, right? But it's in Gemini, so it's in tight quarters, right? Because Gemini is ruled by the smallest planet, right? So it can definitely feel like things can kind of be closing in and tightening up. But maybe it only appears that way because we are growing and evolving. But we have to, you know, push past the uncomfort and experience the breakthrough. So that's the cool thing about this, is that hopefully by the time that we get to the new moon, we can actually experience the breakthrough. This is probably the moment right here with this moon, with the nodes, and with squaring the sun and Mercury squaring Chiron, that this is kind of the moment where, like, in my head, I heard this is the moment where the water breaks, but like, that's kind of what it feels like. This is the moment. It's like, okay, get ready to push. That's what it kind of feels like, even though it's an Aries. But that's what this kind of feels like. This is the moment. Like, all right, get ready to push. You're about to birth something new, right? So, but like I said, if we go too much into the Chiron, if we go too much into the victimhood, if we go too much into the woe is me, then not as many people are going to take us as seriously because everyone else has their own shit that they're dealing with. And that's the thing too about it. The people that react poorly to these squares on this day, on this Friday, the people that react poorly to these squares and feed more into the Chiron, they're in for a rude awakening because not as many people are going to have it. They're not going to get as much attention or love or validation. They're not going to get the validation that they would have gotten a year ago, even a year ago, but especially like 4 years ago, 5, they're not going to get the same currency or the same validation. It's not going to have the same spiciness, the same sauce. It's not going to have the same effect. It's going to be less and less and less because a lot of people are tired of it. A lot of people are over it. People want answers. People want solutions, not just constant complaining, So that's the thing about this. You're not going to get the answer or the results or the validation that you want if you continue to feed the victimhood bullshit. I have the Nine of Wands in reverse. Nine of Wands talks about, overly preparing for something. I think this deck is interesting. Doesn't that look like David Lawrence, the Leo? Doesn't that look like David Palmer, the Leo King? I think it does, anyways. I think and there's a lion there too. So I don't know who made this deck, but that definitely, whoever made this deck was clearly inspired by the Leo King. The Nine in, I wonder why he gave him the Nine of Wands though. I have the Nine of Wands here too. So overly preparing for something, you have to drop your guard with this kind of energy. I think people are way too guarded right now. They're way too guarded. They have too many walls up. Too many walls up right now. And that's the thing about this. It's like people want the validation, but then they put up these walls. So then people don't actually get to know who you really are. Who is the real you? Not just putting out the image of you, the projection of you that you think will be accepted by society, but who are you really? And I think that's the thing with the whole sextile to Jupiter too. Because Jupiter in many ways is about projection. It is about kind of like the grand stage, Jupiter, right? And the party, it's the life of the party, but it's in Gemini, it's dealing with the people. And there's the sextile with the moon. It's like, how do you emotionally connect to these people? Like the real people, not the aristocrats, not the rich millionaires and the billionaires and those people, but the people, the Gemini energy, the people, the everyday people. How do you emotionally connect to those? That's what Jupiter's having to learn right now. So that's the thing about it. Not only that, but it's the people that you probably don't normally associate with. So the people that are actually outside of your echo chamber. That's the other thing about this Friday in this square with the Sun, Moon, Mercury to Chiron, but then subsequently the Moon sextiling over to Jupiter. It can be a moment to kind of break us out of our echo chamber. And how you connect and find common ground with those individuals. Because the fact of the matter is that there are a lot more of those people than the people that are inside of your echo chamber. And we're heading into an age, of this age of Aquarius, where it's going to be important to find the common ground with people that are outside of your own echo chamber. But because we have curated through these different algorithms, these different social algorithms, we have created such a space where we are insulated from people of differing opinions and ideas and walks of life. That when we try and seek validation from these people and we don't immediately receive it, we say it's violence. And this goes both ways, too. You have to be able to understand people, too. Even if it's something that's different or outside the norm and stuff like that, you can't automatically assume. That's the thing, too. I will go ahead and say it. You can't automatically assume that everyone's a P word. We can't automatically assume that, okay? Because I know a lot of people, like in the spiritual community or different conspiracy communities, whatever like that, like to assume that every politician is a P word, right? We don't need to assume that either, right? And that's the other thing too. So we have to, this is going to be a week that is going to start to break people out of their insulated, social, algorithmically driven echo chambers so you can actually meet ordinary people. Right? Now, we are going to see, of course, as this goes on, if we actually take a look too, and I'll go ahead and show you guys. So you guys can see it. Saturn has stationed by this point. So it's getting ready for its retrograde, which will happen on Saturday. It is stationed, right? If you look at the scores, Venus is doing pretty good. Mercury's doing pretty good. The Moon's doing all right. But everyone else, not so hot. But out of the planets that are not doing so hot, ironically, Jupiter's actually doing pretty well. It's -2. Mars is -4, and then you have -5, -5. I think it's still interesting how I keep saying to go to Mars even though the score is -4. Just because it's minus doesn't mean that you can't use it. Doesn't mean that you can't access it and use its power. It just means that it's harder for it's harder for that planet to express itself in what it naturally does in whatever sign or whatever it's being aspected by. But I still do believe that the planets to kind of go to right now is Mars and Taurus. And probably Jupiter and Gemini as well. Learning how to be uncomfortable in situations that you are not normally in. Or learning how to be a big fish in a small pond. Right? Learning how to float your ideas amongst the common folk to see if they actually land or not. Jupiter and Gemini is trying to convince... It's like Jupiter is really much so concerned about like the high art. You know, Jupiter will show like Jupiter will like show, like, say like Jupiter paints a picture, right? And it shows like its friends, and they all have like these different things to say about the art and how beautiful it is and how it speaks to them. And then it gets to Gemini, and this dude's like, I don't really see anything here. I mean, you just do a couple of swipes here and there. And Jupiter's like, don't you see that this conveys a message of this deep emotion and this longing to want to make something of themselves? It speaks to the human condition of wanting to make something of themselves. And the Gemini is just sort of like, it's a bowl of fruit. It's a bowl of fruit. And Jupiter and Gemini is trying to convince regular people that this painting means something else. And maybe it does to Jupiter, but it has to also accept the fact that it's not going to mean that to everybody else, where someone else can look at it and get a whole different meaning out of it. And Jupiter can get frustrated and upset and mad. It's like, I can't, you're not sophisticated to see the message in this. And Gemini's just going to laugh. I'm like, all right, whatever, bro. It doesn't matter. So that's the thing about this too, Good to learn how to be okay with that energy. But yeah, like I said, Saturn, as you can see, it's stationed. So Let me get back to the chart. Let's see. Properties. All right. So move this into Saturday, of course. And pay attention to Saturn because it will go red on Saturday. Now we're going to see, of course, coming into Saturday, we're going to see the moon conjunct that north node, oppose the south node. But like I said, this is really at midnight, pretty much going into Saturday, at least here on the East Coast. We'll see that aspect happen. And we also, on this Saturday, we're going to see this moon come to that 14 degrees right before the sun comes up, and it's going to make the square over to Venus as well, right? So now, of course, the Venus is sort of like, well, it kind of sucks that you're over there in Aries. The moon's like, do you want to switch spots? Like, no, I'm good. You know, Venus is cool in Cancer. The moon rather be over there in Cancer, but no, it's all good. It's okay with it, right? So I think it's like emotionally, we may want to feel like we want to be in a different place or receiving a different thing, but we're not there emotionally right now. Emotionally, the collective is in Aries. Emotionally, the collective is in Aries right now, mundane wise. That's what we are experiencing, right? So this is the whole thing where it's like we're probably thinking that the grass is greener on the other side, if you will. Now, by the end of the day, of course, we will see it also square over to Mercury. So think of Chiron almost as that fence, if you will, thinking that the grass is going to be greener. And then emotionally, we will kind of get to the other side of that Chiron, you know, but it's going to square Mercury. And it's going to be like, okay, well, what did you learn from it? Because Mercury also is about, like, what did you learn? So now, by the time that the moon even does this, by the time it conjuncts Chiron, we can see that Saturn has stationed retrograde. And then, of course, by the time that it gets to the other side and it squares over to Mercury coming into Sunday, yeah, definitely we will see this Saturn retrograde. Now, what's interesting, too, of course, here is that Mercury is going to be in sextile to Uranus on this day as well, while it is in square to the moon. Saturn retrogrades. Now, Saturn retrograde, right? Saturn is the planet of adulting, hard work, attrition, making something of yourself, restriction, rules. And with it being in retrograde, especially here in Pisces, Saturn is turning off their phone and not answering any more calls. Saturn is going to be delegating to the other. If Saturn is like a boss, Saturn is on vacation now in retrograde and is going to be delegating, which means that you're going to have to figure it out. But we've been given all of the tools to know how to figure it out and run things while Saturn is at the beach. That's what it is. That Saturn in Pisces is at a beach somewhere, some sort of cosmic beach somewhere. And while Saturn was still taking calls while at the beach. But now that it's retrograde, it's not going to be answering any more calls. So what does that mean? Because the energy's turned off. So that means that when it comes to hard work, responsibility, integrity, you have to more so rely on yourself more. You can't necessarily rely on something external to get you going, right? So we're probably about to see some interesting stuff with the Saturn Pisces. Some pullbacks on different things, especially when it comes to like work and business and stuff like that. We're probably about to see some interesting things, probably especially next week once Neptune goes retrograde. Be prepared to see some people pulling back. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some prominent CEOs actually resign, especially after Neptune. Especially more in like the entertainment sphere, with being Pisces, more entertainment, more like artsy kind of creative stuff. But we may start to see some people resign, especially knowing that Pluto's going to retrograde back into Capricorn. This could be more preemptive. So we're going to start to see some pullbacks. We're about to see some crunches, if you will. We're about to see some things kind of slow down, if you will, with Saturn retrograding here in Pisces. Because Saturn's not answering any more calls right now. Saturn's like, all right, y'all handle it. Y'all figure it out. Saturn's going to be delegating more now. Saturn is turning off their phone, right? So this is going to be like, you have to grow up. That's the thing about Saturn retrograde. It's like, it is sort of like that moment in Jimmy Neutron, the movie, where all the parents got abducted and they threw the biggest party of all parties. But by the end of the first day, everyone was like drunk on like sugar like overload, because they were just eating ice cream and having soda and eating pizza, and everyone was so they got it all out of their system. All the kids, they got it all out of their system, right? All of the things that their parents didn't let them do, all of the things that they wanted to do, all of the things, the beautiful world that they thought is like, if it was just like this every single day, I would be so happy. And they partied their asses off. But then, what happened? They missed their parents. They missed the direction. They missed this order, if you will. Maybe even the validation from their parents. Part of the validation too. But they thought that they didn't want their parents around, but then their parents were literally abducted, and then they threw a massive rage of a party, and then what happened? They had all the fun. And then they're like, okay, now what? Now what do we do? Oh shit, we can't run this shit by ourselves. We can't run this world by ourselves. Wait, you mean the world's not just fun and games and playing? The world's not just eating as much ice cream and pizza as I want and playing music and peeing in the shower like Sheen did, and it's not just doing these things? No, there's much more to this. But the good thing is that we have been equipped from the universe, and Saturn's like, I've given you all the tools, so do it. Here you go. Some people are going to take this, especially since this is happening on the weekend, some people are going to take this and do that whole Jimmy Neutron thing and have fun, and just, you're like, they're not going to feel as much responsibility and much of the pressure from Saturn. They're not going to feel it, so they're going to just go buck wild. But then, by the time that Neptune retrogrades, the excitement of it all is going to wear off. Because collectively, from a subconscious level, we're going to wake up because Neptune's going to be coming retrograde. Like I said, if planets moving forward means that they're turned on, and that they're moving back, that means they're turned off, well, Neptune rules sleep and dreams. So when Neptune is turned off and retrogrades, it's awake. So yeah, we're going to kind of wake up into the reality. It's like, oh shit, now we got to deal with this stuff now. Yep. Which is why I keep saying that this is a looming final showdown. So, that's Saturday. All right. Now, we move into Sunday. We'll see that moon enter into Taurus. All right. And that's going to be nice. We're going to definitely feel more emotionally grounded. So this is going to be a good thing. The moon's going to feel a lot better being in Taurus. But it is going to square Pluto immediately. So that's fun. Saturn is actually fully in its retrograde at this point. So Sunday is really going to be more so about emotionally, like I said, emotionally grounding ourselves, because the moon's not really going to make a whole lot of aspects on this day. because the planet that it will make the next closest aspect to the sun, that's going to happen more on Monday because the sun's getting ready to move into the second decan of Cancer, right? And, we are moving toward, at this point, we have some more building energy. Tuesday's kind of an interesting day. Tuesday is probably one of the more intense days of the week. But this Sunday actually will give us a chance to kind of chill. This is kind of when you wake up and you ask yourself, oh, was it worth it? With that moon in Taurus, right? Like some people are going to just go buck wild on Friday, buck wild on Saturday, and then they're going to wake up on Sunday. Some people are going to go to church for the first time in months, maybe even a year. Maybe they realize what's truly worth it. It's like, well, was it worth it doing all that? Some people are going to wake up Sunday and be like, oh my gosh, what the hell did I do? I think that's the thing that you have to kind of be careful with Saturn turning off. It does kind of feel like the adulting energy kind of leaves the space. Not really, but it's going to be like the illusion of it, especially with it being in Pisces, right? So just because that planet is turning off its phone doesn't mean that responsibility isn't there. Doesn't mean that, having integrity isn't there, and doing the hard thing isn't there. Doesn't mean that it's not there, and being responsible. No, it's definitely there. It's definitely there. There's not as much of an external push right now with Saturn being off, but it's most certainly there. So it's about how do you motivate yourself, right? Moon in Taurus throughout the day, like I said, it's not really going to hit anything. It's not really going to make any aspects, this moon. It's just Saturn retrograding, moon getting ready to sextile the sun, coming into Monday, pretty much right as it comes into Monday is when we see the sextile the sun, right? 9 degrees. That's pretty much what we see that day. It will conjunct Mars on Monday, here at 16 degrees. And then it will also make a aspect over to Venus, where it's going to sextile Venus, right? And that's mutual reception. This is a much better reception compared to when the moon squared it when it was in Aries, because the moon is going to be like, okay, it's going to be at a different place. And this is actually after the Mars energy too. So this is after, we kind of feel a little bit more into the actions that we can take and really asking ourselves, okay, what is worth it? Is it worth it? Cool. All right, act in that direction. Is it not worth it? Okay, reevaluate what is going to be worth it and how can you move more towards that. The moon would have already conjuncted Mars, so we can kind of figure out, all right, feel more into the actions that do make sense. And so the sextile over to Venus is going to be like this beautiful mutual reception where the moon rules Cancer, Venus rules Taurus, so they're dispositing each other, right? So they're going to be happy, right? And the cool thing is that this is at 17 degrees. 1 plus 7 is 8, and 8 is the number of Saturn. It is the number of Capricorn. So there is some sort of decision that can be had here. 1 ruling the Sun, 7 ruling Neptune, so that it can be very spiritual in nature. But this is kind of like a nice little spiritual realignment where we can, come up with a decision, come up with a game plan, and commit to something that we feel is worth it. And even though it may not necessarily be easy, but we still feel like it is worth it, right? What are the and shoot, even if we look at the scores, this is pretty freaking awesome. Let me pull this up for you real fast. So the moon will be at +10, Venus will be at +8. Now, what's interesting here is that Mars is at -10. So it's interesting how we have, at least score-wise, the moon, which is the strongest, and Mars, which is the weakest, right next to each other. So that's going to emotionally feel very, very weird. It's going to feel very odd. It's going to feel like we are kind of in two different worlds, if you will. But it kind of lets me know, at least with this Mars, is like, yo, this is sort of like the thing where it's like, is it hard or difficult? Yes. Now, impossible, we don't want to do things that are impossible. We don't want to do things that just completely drain our energy either. But this is about like shit. This is the thing. Was like, well, sometimes the hardest things in life is what's going to bring the greatest value. You know, sometimes doing the hard work is what's going to bring the greatest value. You know, why do we pay? Why generally in this society do we pay doctors more than people that work at fast food restaurants? Well, it's because in order to work for a fast food restaurant, there's not nearly as much investment. Pretty much, you could just kind of walk into a place, maybe not necessarily these days, but you could just walk into a place and get that job. Whereas to be a doctor, you have to invest so much time and money and energy and go through schooling and go through your residentials or residency and stuff like that. You have to go through so much stuff to even become a doctor, so then you get paid more. So the path to being a doctor versus the path to working at a fast food restaurant is vastly different and is much harder to do the doctor route. But it does yield much more. It does yield more value. I'm not saying that people that work in fast food restaurants aren't valuable, but doing the doctor route, there's a reason why they get paid more. So that's the thing about this as well. So it's going to feel a bit weird with a plus 10 and a minus 10 together. It almost is sort of like they cancel each other out. It's almost sort of like the universe is bringing us to like this point of neutrality, to where maybe we don't go fully into the moon. We might not go fully into the Mars either. We don't go fully into one side or the other. We don't go fully into the emotion, and then we don't go fully into the ego because they're in such close proximity. They kind of cancel each other out. They kind of make each other a little bit more neutral. And it's actually probably a wonderful blessing in disguise. And we can start to focus on what really matters. Right? So I think it's interesting how they are like just so close to each other, and they're like plus 10 and minus 10 respectively. So wait, no, that's not what I wanted to do. Properties. Discard. Okay. All right, cool. Let me get back over here. So let me grab my water. So Monday, like I said, we're going to see that moon make those aspects. And then the other cool thing, too, I want to bring your attention to, it's a bit of a minor aspect. I don't usually talk about these, but the fact that this is happening, that sextile is happening at that time, well, we do actually have the moon, while it's not going to be in sextile to Uranus, angle. So you can see it's at 25 degrees, so it'll be 5 degrees to Gemini, plus that 30, so 35, plus 10 is 45. So we actually are going to be experiencing throughout Monday this building semi-square between the Sun and Uranus. Now, like I said, this semi-squares generally are a bit more of a minor aspect, but because this is the Sun, I feel like it does have much more prevalence here. And like I said, this is an interesting thing because it's, like I said, it's half of a square. So it's challenging, similar to a square, but it's more of like the preparation for it, if you will. So it's like, if the square is the test, the semi-square is sort of like, the review guide, if you will, And so we kind of get like this nice review guide from the universe with that Sun in Cancer, which is definitely going to be much more emotional, much more into the feels, and that Uranus and Taurus, which is, like I said, this is Uranus and Taurus. We've been dealing with it for a while now, but it's, definitely some randomness. I think maybe what happens is that we maybe look at the study guide and we're like, oh, wait, I don't remember going over that topic in class. I don't remember, like, there might be some random stuff put on there, and it's like, maybe you did actually go over it in class. Maybe you weren't paying attention that day. That could be a thing. Maybe you're paying attention to your crush at the other side of the classroom, and that's why you missed it and shit, But, this can be one of those moments where it's sort of like, maybe there's material to review that, maybe we weren't fully prepared for, but doesn't mean that we don't have the capability and the resources and the tools to do so, to be able to answer the question. Because I think that's what it comes down to. You have the tools and the resources, to answer. This Uranus is resourceful. It's Aquarius. They're very, very resourceful. They're very solution oriented people. Aquarius. They're always looking for solutions, right? And this moon's going to be in close proximity to this Uranus. It's not going to quite conjunct it today, but it's going to be in close proximity to it. So we have an interesting semi-square, a 45-degree angle, where it's like there's like a preparation moment here. And I think also we have to consider the fact that this is sort of like the preparation for the balsamic phase of the moon heading towards the new moon. It's not quite there yet. That's where Aldebaran is, at least at the current moment. It's going to be probably closer to like 11, 12 degrees of Gemini, if you will, is where that's going to be occurring when it hits that balsamic, that last 30 days, if you will. So now Tuesday is an interesting day. There's a lot that's happening on Tuesday. Now, I was actually kind of surprised when I saw this. Now, first things first, Moon is going to conjunct Uranus. It's in the middle of the night, right? So then we're going to see this Moon is going to make a nice little sextile over to Neptune, right? And that's going to be earlier in the morning. So we get some edgy energy here, right, with the sextile. It's an opportunity, if you will, I think, to feel more into what's truly valuable and to see the big picture and to know that's worth it. But oh my goodness, Neptune is now stationed retrograde. Oh shit. Now we have three planets that are retrograde. Pluto, Saturn, and Neptune. Oh shit. So you're going to feel this edginess for sure on this Tuesday when the moon does this. Now, what's interesting is that Mercury, by this point, has shifted into Leo as well. And what does that mean? That means that it's also about to oppose Pluto. So this is what all happens on Tuesday. Moon come over Uranus, right? Then it's going to sextile Neptune, right? This is happening at the same time that Mercury moves into Leo. This is happening at the same time that the Sun is squaring the nodes, right? This is happening at the same time that Venus will trine Saturn. So, and the moon will, like I said, it'll move into Gemini. It's going to hit 1 degree, and then it's going to trine Pluto, right? While Venus hits 19 degrees and begins to trine Saturn. And then you have the Sun that's going to be in square to the nodes on Tuesday. And then you're going to see at the end of the day, Mercury hit 1 degree and begin to oppose Pluto. And all that happens on one freaking day. So Tuesday is going to be wild. Tuesday is going to be wild. There's so many things that are going to be happening here. And with the moon going into Gemini and it's getting close to that Jupiter as well, and it's getting ready to enter the last 30 degrees to the sun and ready to enter into the new moon phase, getting closer to there, this is a moment where it can feel very uncomfortable because we are about to birth something new, especially in Cancer. Especially in Cancer, because Cancer is the mother, right? So something definitely new will be born here, but it's going to be uncomfortable as heck because that sun, like I said, it's squaring the nodes. So download central. Downloads, downloads, downloads. Mercury in Leo opposing Pluto. You talk about a collision battle where Mercury is going to be much more focused on, creativity and passion, and there's more Leo aspects, but then it's opposing Pluto, where Pluto's like, hey, you remember that Capricorn shit we still got to work on? And Leo's like, but I want to roar, I want to be the lion, I want to be the Leo, I want to do these things, I want to be creative. And Pluto's like, yeah, that's cool and all, but we still got to take care of this Capricorn shit. Pluto, you're in Aquarius. Why are you so worried about Capricorn? Because I thought I was done cleaning out that closet. But there's some things in there that just won't die. It's like a light bulb with this Mercury opposing Pluto. It's like a light bulb. It's like, oh shit. You're right. Now, at least we have Venus that's going to be trining over to Saturn during this. But Saturn is also retrograde now. So when it comes to that reception quality, receiving aspect that Venus wants to do, it wants to receive some type of guidance from Saturn that's going to make it want to feel good. But Saturn is going to be retrograde. Venus is going to call Saturn, and Saturn ain't going to answer. Even though Venus exalts itself in Pisces. Saturn might text Venus back, but that's all Venus is going to get. So it's going to be like, well, shit. Like, what do I do now? You know? Tuesday's going to be kind of wild with all that happening at the same time. You're definitely going to feel it. And I think that's why that day, it's like, comes back to, it's like, yeah, there is a looming showdown, because it's like we do have the tools and we are ready to kind of move forward, but we do have to address some things. We do have to kind of go back. We do have to, confront the final boss, if you will. But you are more than prepared to face this final boss, if you will. You're more than prepared to do so. It's just we have to learn how to become more comfortable with the uncomfortable. And that's really what this is about. Even though this is Cancer season, and this is all about more of the comfort and stuff like that, I think it's interesting because this happens. This is the summertime, and even from just a physical weather aspect, we're going through a bit of a heat wave. It's not very comfortable out there. It's hot. You get sweaty. You get kind of sticky and shit like that. At least here in the Northern Hemisphere. At least here in America. It's not necessarily the most comfortable. But it's about how do we find that resolve and that resilience to make it through and realize that we have been given the tools to succeed. We have been given the tools to succeed. And we can't always be necessarily focused on what tools other people have. We can collaborate, we can make friends, we can get with other people and stuff like that. But we have to realize that the tools that work for us are the tools that work for us. And maybe they don't necessarily work for everybody, but they do work for us. But you can find the right people to collaborate with. You can find the right people to commune with. And I think that's really what this comes down to, because like I said, Pluto still is still in Aquarius. It's not in Capricorn yet. It's still in Aquarius, but it's heading back towards this Capricorn. It's facing it. It's not necessarily concerned about Aquarius right now. Not really. And take this from a Scorpio. I'm Pluto ruled. So take this from a Scorpio. Pluto's not really concerned about Aquarius right now. It's concerned about going back into Capricorn. It's concerned about transforming that last little bit of Capricorn that needs to be transformed, so we can finally move forward as a collective. So let's hop into the cards, shall we? To see what we got to round this out. And I trust that this message so far has been helpful for you. But like I said, the main takeaways from this is that we have two planets that are going to be retrograding. Whereas we've only had Pluto retrograde, and it's been fine. It's felt all right. It's felt okay. Not as slow. But especially with Saturn retrograding and the Neptune retrograding, we are about to see the mask get pulled back and the veil get pulled back like we've never seen before. And we have never seen it like this before. Right? No one alive has seen Neptune retrograde at 29 degrees of Pisces. No one has seen it. Let alone with Saturn there. So we are about to see some stuff that we have never seen before. Because if Neptune is the dream and it's at the last degree, we are about to see some crazy stuff that we have never seen before. So it's time to prepare for that and to not stick our head in the sand and to assume responsibility and know what can we do to change our lives and how can we move forward in more positive, much more spiritually aligned ways. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared. And if you are afraid and you are scared, it's probably actually a good thing. It means you're alive. If you were just numb to all of this, I'd be more afraid. I'd be more afraid if you were numb to this. I'd be more concerned if you were just trying to numb yourself with whatever it is that you numb yourself with. But if you're a little bit afraid, if you're a little bit worried and stuff like that, it's probably actually a good thing. But courage and bravery is being able to move despite your fears. Yeah, we don't know how this is going to turn out exactly, but we move forward anyways. I have the Empress. I love that. I love that. We have the Empress card here. Knowing your worth, knowing your value, knowing your place with the society. This card has so many things going on in it. She has like the star on the earrings. She has like the stars on her hat and stuff. She has the bird carrying this cherry. She has the pentacle necklace. She has the globe right there as well. So yeah, this is about knowing your worth, knowing your value, knowing what you bring to the collective. Is something that's beautiful. It is, right? We also have, I have two cards. I have the Two of Wands and the Queen of Pentacles in reverse. The Two of Wands and the Queen of Pentacles in reverse. So the Two of Wands, normally it does speak to like, do I go this way or do I go this way? With it being in reverse, you already know which way to go. And with the Queen of Pentacles in reverse, it's like, yes, we want to, the Queen of Pentacles, normally she's very, very sure. Normally she's very, very logical and grounded. With it being in reverse, she's not as grounded. She's probably a little bit more emotional and stuff like that too. But I think it's like, we know which way to go. We have to get down to the facts of it, and stop second guessing ourselves and overthinking it. This Queen of Pentacles, she's overthinking things being in reverse. It's like, which way do I go? You already know which way to go. You already know which way to go, beloved. Now, I also have the Eight of Cups in reverse. I got this card recently. I think I got this card actually for today's tarot reading. The Eight of Cups, I got it for today's tarot reading. So, it's in reverse. So, you're going to see people not being able to let go and move on. That's what this Eight of Cups is. Not being able to let go and move on. Why aren't they able to let go and move on? Well, let's see. We have the Five of Wands. Petty bullshit arguments that don't actually fucking matter. I'm glad it's the Five of Wands. At least I know it's petty. Just not being able to see eye to eye with people. You're not going to get along with everybody. But you can find some common ground. But this Five of Wands lets me know that it's petty. It's not actually like a really big deal. With this Eight of Cups, but it feels like a big deal. Well, yeah, it feels like a big deal, but it's actually not that big of a deal. So chill out, homie. It's all good. I'm gonna draw one more card for you guys. It's like just the overall. Oh, the Magician. Oh, it's beautiful. You have the power to manifest and create your reality. You really do. At the very least, you have the power to respond and to adapt. And that's what this Magician card does. It responds and it adapts and it knows itself. The Magician knows who they are. They know the elements. They know how to work with nature. They know how to work with these energies. And they know how to make magic happen no matter where they go. Because even if they can't control every situation, they know how to mold things to work in their favor. Because they know how to move and dance with the universe. And they are spiritually aligned. That is going to do it for your cosmic convergence for this week of the 26th of June to the 2nd of July, 2024. I trust that this message will assist you on your journey this week. And yeah, y'all have a wonderful week. We're going to make it through. It's all good. Be sure to check out my daily tarot content. And until the next video, y'all take care. Stay blessed. Have a wonderful week. I'll see y'all soon. Love y'all. Peace.